Welcome everyone to the September 2021 meeting of the Utah Amateur Radio Club. We are happy to see you all again. Let's see. First, we need to acknowledge people in the chat. Say hi to John Brewer and Tom Schaefer, NY4I, and Brian, W7CBM, Laird, WB7TGP, Gary Crum, KK7DB, and let's see, a few other people. I gotta scroll up to see what's going on. If you want to participate, please use the YouTube chat. We're kind of looking at that now and then. If we don't read you, type larger so we can maybe see it. Maybe we'll see it then. But before we get on with it too much, Morris, what kind of important announcements do you have for concerning the club and stuff like that?
Well, one of the more important announcements is this things that you guys have been working on at Leamington. I think maybe you're the best person to talk about that. I've got 2 classes that start next week, a technician class on Monday evenings from 7 till 9, runs for 9 weeks. And on Wednesday evenings from 7 till 9, the general class that runs another 9 weeks. So the 2 classes start and end the same week.
Let's see. Oh, Mickey asked, are those classes in person or on Zoom?
Oh, they are all online using Zoom.
Okay. And you've been doing these for, unfortunately, for a year and a half, I guess. And
yeah. But I much prefer in person, but it's much more difficult for those students out of state to make it in person. So online works.
Okay. Let's see. Where the UARC is not doing exam sessions, but as usual, we would refer to you to hamstudy.org/sessions. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be in the lower third down here when you watch this recorded, although I'll make a fool of myself and forget to put it in. But hamstudy.org/sessions. There are live sessions in Utah and online all around the country. So that's no being stuck at home or whatever is no excuse for not taking an exam. You probably did notice that we didn't hold an in-person meeting this month. One of the things we're trying to figure out is how many people who attend the meetings virtually would go back to the in-person meeting should we start holding them. And the other complication is that we would certainly make our best attempt during an in-person meeting to put them live online as we are doing now. One of the issues, of course, is that we've been having an issue of getting reliable, fast internet out of the classroom where we hold our meetings. But we chose not to do it this time because we weren't quite ready, and frankly, we kind of saw the C word caseload going sideways. And you know, if you've been watching the news, it isn't getting any better. And rather than potentially statistically killing 2% of the people that attend the meeting, we are probably going to hold online meetings for the time being. So we love our membership and want to keep them around, even if you end up with COVID fatigue, or not COVID fatigue, Zoom fatigue. There we go.
One thing about online is we do not spread diseases. Well,
I suppose somebody could spread a computer virus accidentally by sneezing into their microphone. But anyway, that's another thing entirely. I do have some sad news to report. In the past week or so, we have lost 2 amateurs that are well known to quite a few people. First, one of our locals, Fred Desmet, KE7NZA, passed away of cancer in the past week. Oh, you found a picture. There we go. Fred, for many years, is affectionately known as the Book Lady. I think that's a term he used himself, affectionately, when he took over the job from Susan Bowman, who was, in fact, the Book Lady for many years. And another person we lost was Don Blanchard, WA7GTU, out of Cedar City. Those up here in Salt Lake area may not know Don, but if you've ever used the intertie, you've certainly talked on a repeater he had something to do with. He was effectively Mr. Repeater in southwestern Utah, and he had the ins on how to make things go. I mean, helped many people get licensed and everything else. He was a really nice guy. So is Fred too, of course. But we will miss them both, and I guess, but such what can you say? Let's see. Next month meeting will be homebrew. Is that right? Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And we're going to do it like we did last year, unfortunately. So, what we would like to hear, from you. Send an email to, what is it, homebrew@utaharc.org. I think that's I can make that email exist again, or just send an email to the club president. Would it be okay if they send them to you?
Sure.
Yes. Proposing your project, and then a few pictures, and then preferably ham radio related, and we'll hopefully get you connected with Zoom like we did last year. And if you can't be there and want to send sort of a PDF or a description and a bunch of pictures that we can show on your behalf, that'll work too. So
is
last
Chuck going to MC this?
Who?
Is Chuck? Who's MCing it?
We haven't figured that one out. Let's let it be a surprise.
Oh. All right.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest that would be the person to send the email to, but since we don't know yet, send them to me.
Right. So we're going to do it like we did last year, via video. One or two people sent videos via email or Google Share or something, and we played their video remotely so they didn't have to. And it also makes it easier when we edit the video. We get better quality video for the archived version that's online. So be thinking of what project you've done in the past year, that, or even longer, that we haven't seen before, that is roughly ham radio related. Chuck, you have any comments?
I just said maybe two because.
Oh yes, yeah. Don't feel limited to just one project. Depending on how many people show up, 5 or so minutes at least per presentation's kind of reasonable. But scalable. We can always mute you if we want on Zoom. Hey Tom, I'm going to put you on the spot. 2 things. Tell us what the meeting topics are coming up, and if people want to re-up their membership to UARC, how do they do that?
Hi, I'm Tom, KE7NZA Club Secretary. So we just spent a few minutes talking about our next meeting that we're going to have in October. That's going to be Homebrew Night. That's always one of the fun ones. They're all pretty fun, but this one is more of an audience participation type meeting on the Homebrew Nights. So I encourage you to get your homebrew ideas out there so that we can get you started for October. So that's planned for October. The November meeting is currently scheduled for Larry Levan. He's a senior applications engineer for VFC Lincol, which is a lightning protection and ESD protection. So we're going to have a nice presentation on how to make things a little bit more robust and reliable as it relates to ESD and lightning protection. The December meeting hasn't been decided on. Part of the December meeting, of course, will be the election of officers. We usually do that in December. But as far as that's not the subject of the meeting in December. It's just one of the business activities that we typically have to do in December. So the main thing is just keep checking. Have a link on your browser somewhere to the Utah Amateur Radio Club web page that we have. It's maintained, it's kept up to date, and you can always find out if there's any late breaking news or last minute changes, including how to link to the YouTube and including how to find out what's on our next meeting. And that also brings me to the other thing that Clint had asked about. That's probably the easiest and the best way right now for renewing or joining UARC for the first time. If you look down on the left-hand margin, you'll see a link there that you can click that says join or renew your membership. And you just follow you click that link. You fill out there's a big green button that you press. You fill out your information, your call sign, your name. You can pay with either a credit card or PayPal if you choose to join UARC, and we hope you will. And that's the best way to do it. There's also instructions there. If you can't do it that way, there's instructions on the website on some alternate methods that you can use for the sending something by snail mail. So that's kind of the gist of it.
One final thing before we send it over to our guest tonight. As you will be aware, if you've been following us, we as in the club have been working on updating or upgrading the Leamington HF remote station. For those who aren't aware, one of the perks of UARC membership is that you get free access, assuming you have a general class or higher for HF privileges, access to not one but 2 HF remote stations. The first one is the one at near Leamington, and then which I'm about to show you something video from, and the next one is the one at the cabin of Glenn KE7NZA near Fairview, who's kindly allowed to let UARC members use the station. Now, those who have been following it know we're adding a beam to the system, a log periodic antenna. Let's see here. And you can still hear my audio, right? As I'm talking? I presume.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure if, so anyway, so one of the problems we have is that we're at 65-foot level here. There's a big platform and we have 20 feet of very heavy tower up there. Now, we've already gotten the tower up there, but the problem is how do we lift that heavy tower when there's already a beam on it? So a few weeks ago, we tested this system where we put another pole, guide pole bolted to the superstructure and a winch on there to pull the antenna up. And as you can see, it makes things go up and down. We actually tested it with more than twice the expected load on the assembly and found it lifted it fine. And then I even hung my weight on it too, which probably increased it to 5 or 6 times the expected load, and everything went fine. So that kind of gives you an idea of what this whole thing looks like. You can probably see that the ground below is kind of small, but and what the whole place looks like. But at the far end of that thing, hopefully in the next month, maybe about a month from now, we will be raising the log periodic for a reel, and that log periodic will cover 20 through 10 meters, including the WARC bands. So there you go. I thought I'd show this video just to kind of see what your club dollars at work. Fortunately, we make most of this out of just scrap metal we had laying around. The lifting mechanism. We borrowed the winch from Bruce Faraday, one of our board members, and no problem making it go up and down. So there you go. I'm going to switch back. And if anybody has any questions about that or comments about any of the club stations, if you want to use a club station, make sure you email Morris, our club president, KE7NZA. If you're a UARC member or soon to become a UARC member, you still need to get permission, and then we can give you information on how to use the station and the manuals and everything. But that's all you really need to do. And
well,
go ahead.
You do need to go to the HF remote place on the web, on the UARC web page,
right,
and read the instructions there about how to get it, and then send me the email.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, so if you go to the UARC web page, there's actually along the left side, there's a let's see, I'm going to bring this up here. Vamp for a second. There we go. All right, so along the left side, HF remote, right? Remotes right
There we
here.
go.
And then there's a quick reference guide and a manual here, and read all the stuff there. And then follow the instructions on here. So the remotes get a fair amount of use. And it turns out more than one person can use a remote at one time. For example is some people use it to check into Utah Beehive Net, and if everybody wants to check into the same net, you know, you could just take turns transmitting as if you were sitting around a microphone at somebody's house. And the program to use this is free. It's recommended that you use something better than the built-in microphone of your speaker, but a headset is fine. So anyway, anything else, Morris, before we throw it to Mickey?
Nope.
All right, Mickey, wake up.
The Wyoming Ham Fest.
Oh, that's right, Wyoming Ham Fest. Oh, there's a couple things coming up. Good thing. Next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, there's the one in Bountiful. There's a swap meet in Bountiful. And then the one after that, I think is that the one after that? There's the one in Utah County that the Utah Valley Club is putting
on the 25th.
Yeah, on the 25th. However, there will not be the Ham Fest up in Wyoming. Apparently, they canceled that recently for reasons that are readily apparent to most people these days. So if you were planning to go to Wyoming to the Ham Fest, maybe better luck next time. So anyway, those are the immediate other club things happening. So the one in Bountiful and the one in Utah County are the same place they were last year, and they're actually mentioned on Davis County's and Utah Valley Club's websites respectively. Now I got you, Mickey. Introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be telling us.
Okay, I am Mickey Applebaum, KE7NZA, and the talk tonight's going to cover two topics that are related to each other. The first is storm spotter training and how to become a storm spotter for the Weather Service, and the Skywarn program that is part of the ARRL system in association with the National Weather Service, and what the two of those things are and how they're related. For Storm Spotter, it is a certificate-based process from the Weather Service. And I hope you can see my screen now. All this information is on the Utah SAG website under training and classes. So the links are available to you there, rather than me try to read off each link or somehow share the links. The actual in-person Storm Spotter training is usually takes somewhere between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours. And it's conducted by Kevin Bargenbrook from the Weather Service. And if you're interested and want to have him come in and do the actual in-person training, we can get that set up for you. The Storm Spotter program from the Weather Service is a program that trains people on how to determine what is happening weather-wise in their area, how to quantify what's happening, and then how to get that information to the Weather Service so that it can be utilized in developing and disseminating information about what's happening weather-wise in any particular area or geographic location. The training can be done online rather than in person. And on the website, you can see the two links here and here for the two parts of the training program that discuss what your role, the first one is what your role as a Skywarn spotter is, and what would be expected of you by the Weather Service. And the other is a training on what some of the weather conditions would be that the Weather Service would be interested in having you report. The 2 online trainings together take anywhere between an hour and a half and 3 hours, depending on how quick you read, whether you go back and review before you take the within each one of the programs are test sections to make sure that you actually have understood what it is they're talking about. In the role of the Skywarn spotter section, it's a lot easier to pass each section than it is when you actually get into what the different weather conditions are. So for me, I breezed through the role of the Skywarn spotter training and then spent a bunch of time going through the different aspects of what they want you to know. And that was even after a few years back, I actually went through a weather training and had some understanding of what they were talking about. The key, if you do the online training, is that when you're registering for the training, it asks you for who your supervisor or instructor is and what their email address is. And you need to put in Kevin's email address so that he gets notified and gets a copy of your certificates when you pass, so that he can actually add you to the list of trained spotters that the Weather Service office here in Salt Lake maintains. You can't, if you forget to do that, you can email him the certificates, but it takes a lot longer to get listed as a spotter that way. Some of the things that we in Utah are more concerned about than what the training covers are flash floods and hotspot fires, which happen a lot more often here in our area than in other areas of the country, which are more concerned with heavy thunderstorms or tornadoes or things like that. So even though it's not discussed as much in the training itself, that is one of the primary things that the Utah office tracks is fires and flash floods. Going through the various training modules, you'll learn how to determine what the different cloud patterns are, cloud formations, how to determine using quantified information, how to determine wind speed and things like that, so that when you do report it, it comes to the Weather Service in a relatively common format that they don't have to, it's not like saying I'm getting golf ball size hail. They actually ask you to use some specific markers for determining the different areas or the different things within a weather situation that they would be interested in. Once you've gotten the storm spotter training done and you've gotten your certificates, we are working with the Weather Service here in Utah to create an email distribution list, so that when there are issues that they need on the ground information for, they can send an email out to people saying, if you're in this area, please get us this information. The Weather Service uses 2 Doppler antennas in the state. One is at 6,000 feet and one is at 10,000 feet. And the problem with Doppler is that they don't have a very good downward trajectory. So they see what's good straight across and up. But when you're 10,000 feet up and there's something going on at the 6,000 foot level, they have no idea what's happening at that point. And that's where they need the on the ground people to respond and reply and send to them information about what's happening in their areas. There are multiple ways to send information to them, and some of it's better than others, depending on whether you can send real-time information or whether you're going to report something that happened 15, 20 minutes ago. The website, the Storm Reports website that has the link here, brings up a page where it asks for specific type of information about what's happening. Tornado, funnel cloud, flooding, hail, wind, rainfall, snowfall, freezing rain or ice, dense fog, or a dust storm. You would pick your primary type of situation, and then it would ask you for the time, date, and detailed information about what it is you saw, and then where under the location, and then you would review that information and send it. I don't want to send a false report, so I'm not going to continue there. This is the best way to send real-time information to the Weather Service. They receive this report within a matter of seconds of you hitting the send button. The other way that is best for immediate reporting is to call them on their telephone number, 800-882-1432, extension 1. This will actually get you directly to one of the meteorologists who is tracking the weather at that moment in time. The other three options here, email, Twitter, and Facebook, are better for sending information after an event. This is their Twitter page. They post information about what's going on this page, as well as receive information. Several hours ago, they posted that today we broke the record high for the temperature on this date when we hit 97 degrees Fahrenheit. The previous record was 95. So it is still warm out there. The Facebook page has exactly the same information. If you are more familiar with Facebook, it can be a lot easier to send a message here because you're not limited to 128 characters like you are on Twitter. So if you had a bunch of information to send in terms of type of condition, time, date, location, and they really appreciate having as specific a location as you can get, whether that's using GPS coordinates or street address or some other identifiable location marker for them that they can then pinpoint on their maps and be able to track a range of areas rather than just one specific area. They really like having that ability. And because of that, Facebook does give you the ability to put in a lot more information, as well as upload photos if you've taken photos of what's going on or video of what's going on. But again, Twitter and Facebook, as well as email, are better for reporting things after the event as opposed to real time during the event. And we will get rid of that and we'll go back here. There are two other methods of getting information to the Weather Service. There is the KE7NZA organization website, and MPing, MPing is a mobile application where you can actually touch screen on your phone and be able to send information directly from the screen on your phone. KE7NZA is a service outside of the National Weather Service that allows you to send information that is shared with the Weather Service. It's another way of sending information. Again, it is not necessarily the best way of sending real-time information. If you want real-time information to get to the Weather Service, your best bet is either their reporting page on the web or the 800 number. And that's about all I'm going to talk about for the spotter program. The other service is a, oh, did it not work this time? Their link doesn't always work to Skywarn, and I'm trying to remember how to get there. Should have checked that before I started. Skywarn is a program that was developed between the ARRL and the National Weather Service. It is a program that uses ham radio operators to send information to the Weather Service as trained spotters. The program was started in the 1970s and pretty much has stayed the same up until last year for everything that they did. The big event that happens with Skywarn is once a year, there is a DX event called Skywarn Recognition Day. For us, this year, it will be Friday, December 3rd at 5 o'clock in the afternoon through Saturday, December 4th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a 24-hour program where the intent is to contact as many Weather Service offices across the country as you can in that 24 hours, as well as contacting other radio operators throughout the country or the world, and pass weather information back and forth between those contacts and get that information to the Weather Service through a reporting program that's done at the end of the recognition day. In previous years, we would all meet at the National Weather Service office here in Salt Lake. We have had not last year, but the year before, we had 3 HF radios in operation, 2 of them operating voice, 1 of them operating FT8. We have 2 or 3 UHF VHF radios, and we have a laptop running I'm blanking the name now. Not IRLP, the other one. And last year, because of COVID, the operation was changed a little bit, where you registered with the Weather Service and were given a Skywarn number, and you operated from wherever you felt most comfortable, whether that was your home or out in a park or on top of a mountain or wherever you wanted to set up, and made the contacts individually and tracked them, and then got your information to the local coordinator, which has been me for the past several years. And I compiled all of the contacts into the report that was sent on to the Weather Service. You would individually report your numbers, and you were awarded a certificate based on the number of contacts you made individually. And we as a group in Utah were awarded a certificate based on the total number of contacts made by those people who had registered through the Skywarn registration page as being part of the Utah organization. It's kind of cool having the certificate. It is just like any other DX event, such as field day or winter field day, in that the options are whatever band, whatever mode you want to work, and however long you want to do it. We do ask that when we do this in person at the Weather Service, we limit people to 3 2-hour sessions concurrent in a consecutive order. We don't want people there for more than 6 hours at a time, because you can really get burnt out, especially if you're there during one of the busy times. It is a 24-hour event. We operate the full 24 hours. And 2 years ago, when we did this in person, we had managed to reach 285 unique contacts, which was really good for us. We had contacts. We actually made contact with W1AW. We made contact with stations in Alaska and stations in Hawaii. And we made international contacts in Germany, Belgium, Australia, and England that I can remember. So this is a great opportunity for you to practice your skills in international communications, or if you're a technician and want to try it, we always have at least a general on site through each shift, so that anybody who is not yet licensed to try HF can try HF. And I think that's about it. I don't know if there's a way of checking to see if there's questions. If there are, I'll try to figure out how to take questions.
Yeah, we can take questions via the Zoom session or the YouTube chat. Let's see. Nothing so far. Yeah, you covered it pretty well.
And I am available to answer anybody's question if they want by sending an email to my ARRL account. It's my call sign, KE7NZA @ARRL.net.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay.
And I'm hoping that we get information within the next few weeks from the Weather Service as to how we're actually going to do it this year. I think they're holding off, waiting to see what happens, just like a lot of other folks have been.
Okay. Let's see. So you kind of explained the what and how. Could you just maybe quickly tell some of your experiences as to what you've done when what you've done and how it's affected stuff that you've done personally?
Okay. As far as the spotter stuff goes, I have made weather reports to the Weather Service. If you do so, don't do so expecting to get rewarded or even recognized. It's pretty much your report goes into a bucket, and they take that information and utilize it the best they can. And if you call on the phone, if there's something really drastic going on, you may find that the meteorologist is a little bit gruff, because they're busy trying to figure out what's going on. So, weather reporting is a great thing. The Weather Service really appreciates getting the reports. Just, be aware that your report, you may feel like your report's been ignored, and it hasn't been. It gets there. As far as Skywarn, me personally, the past several years when we've met in person at the Weather Service, I've used the computer and used the Echolink interface on the computer. We can do Echolink on the radio. We can connect to the Echolink repeater through the radio and do it that way. But we found that doing it on the computer, there's less distraction and you're better able to follow what's going on, and track what's happening. We have hosted the Echolink page 3 times. 2 years ago, we hosted for 3 hours. The year before that, we hosted for 2 hours. And what that means is that we're the one that everybody checks in with. And that's when things get real fun. You are net control on the Echolink page for the time that you sign up for. And we highly recommend that if somebody really wants to get involved, that's one way to do it, and know that you're going to be getting your exercise in as a net control operator and taking calls. I have also done the UHF VHF. We've utilized the Western and Eastern reflectors to make contacts, as well as the intertie and the Sinbad system. So we not only do the local, as many as we can locally contacts, but we also use the interconnected repeaters on the VHF and UHF connections. Again, that's a great way for people to understand how those systems work and the manner in which you would call people through those different systems. HF is HF. You pick a band, you spin the dial, you wait until you hear somebody, and then you start making your contacts when you hear somebody saying that they are taking calls for Skywarn. Or you can pick a frequency on a band and be the one making the call out. There's no specific frequency that's in use. There is no specific mode that's in use. So we have made contacts on HF, both AM and sideband. We haven't done too much HF on FM. But we've also, like I said, we've also used FT8. 1 year we had a person come in with her QRP radio, little itty bitty box, and a wire antenna that she threw out the window, and she was using PSK, and in an hour made somewhere around 35 contacts. So it's a great way to practice or set your portable equipment up if you want to bring your own equipment. Like I said, the last time we did this, we had 3 HF radios, a laptop running Echolink, and 3 VHF UHF radios.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's fair to say that here in Utah, we have relatively boring weather compared to a lot of parts of the country. Just very briefly, what are some of the things that perhaps one of the people that might be on this live stream, NY4I in Florida, certainly is no stranger to more severe weather than we often get. So what do some of the people typically do in the busier parts, like Tornado Alley or Florida, where they have lots of thunderstorms and tornadoes and hurricanes and places like that? I mean, where there's arguably more to do, for your weather spotter.
It's a different kind of spotting. Like I said, in Utah, we have flash floods and we have weather sparked fires that they don't have in the Plain States. And we do occasionally get the tornado, and quite often when tornadoes come through Utah, the Weather Service is alerted to those by spotters faster than they see that on their equipment in the weather office. In other areas of the country, storm spotters, for example, the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, they'll use storm spotters. They'll be asking storm spotters to call in or report information about the travel of hurricanes, when and where they make landfall, what kind of wind speeds they're seeing at ground level. Again, most of the information that the Weather Service wants from any of the spotters is what's happening at ground level, because virtually nowhere in the country can the Weather Service offices see what's happening at ground level. But tracking the path of tornadoes, tracking the intensity of tornadoes is something that's real big in the plain states through Tornado Alley. On the West Coast, storm surges, actually on both coasts, storm surges on the coastline are real critical to the Weather Service. So depending on where you are in the country, there are different things that they are interested in getting immediate information about. Here in Utah, hail and ice storms, weather-related fires, and flash flooding. Those are things that they really need to get information about as quickly as they can, because they're all ground level events that they can't see from the radars.
Right. Okay. Well, it makes perfect sense. I mean, radar doesn't go to the ground. A lot of people don't realize that. And only way they know that something's happening if somebody tells them it's happening. It's been that way for a long time, and it'll probably be that way for decades to come. John Jukes asks the question from the YouTube chat: is the Weather Service any closer to getting an active amateur station in the office? It sounds like he has a bit of background.
We used to have one, and then somebody in a weather office, not in Utah, while a television news crew was coming through talking about a weather event in their area, the cameraman happened to pan across the room and picked up the screens from the meteorologists on their desks, and one of the meteorologists had a not safe for work image on the screen that went over TV. And the Weather Service made it a mandate to all of their offices that from that moment on, a section of the office would be set aside and set up with all the proper background and everything else to be the designated news point, where if a news crew came in, that's where they were allowed to be and nowhere else. And when that happened, we lost our space. We have been working with the Weather Service the past several years, and this was supposed to happen last year, and then COVID. They are remodeling the office here in Salt Lake. And as part of that remodel, we are going to get a communications room set up. It's not going to be dedicated to just the amateur radio operators, but it will be a place where when they do need us to come into the Weather Service office like we had done in the past, we will have, we're going to have antennas set up on the roof, coax brought in, and panels put on the wall so we can just plug patch cables in, and everything set. So all we got to do is take the radio out of the box, put it on the table, plug the power and coax in, and we're up and running. And that is something that we have worked out over the past couple of years with the Weather Service, as well as, like I said, we're working on the email distribution list, that once that all gets in place, we will have a memorandum of understanding set up that explains how all the stuff's going to work. And we will be back actually operating out of the Weather Service. Like I said, we can make arrangements to have Kevin come in and do the presentation, but it is a long, or the training, but it is a long training session. It's not, something you can do in 45 minutes. But if members of UARC are members of other clubs where they can have an hour and a half to 2 hours or so to have a presentation, shoot me an email and I'll tell you how to get in touch with Kevin and get that set up.
All right, your email again once more, just for completeness.
Kilo Echo 7 November Zulu Alpha at ARRL.net.
By the way, is there being that we are less prone to flash floods up here traditionally than in some of the canyon countries down south, are there really more people in southern Utah that know these things, or is it kind of where the people are?
I wouldn't necessarily say we're less prone. The flash flooding that we'll see here would be up like through Provo Canyon. Not too long ago, we had a flash flood through Angel Falls. Flash flooding can happen anywhere in the state, especially if we have a high precipitation winter followed by extremely warm weather in a very short period of time, where snowmelt just will come down the side of the mountain and just wipe things out. So flash flooding is something that happens throughout the state. In the more rural areas, there's less in place to redirect the water than there is here. And that's probably the only thing that makes it that much worse in the rural areas, is that when there is a flood, there's no place for the water to go other than through a town or through a large area of relatively flat land.
Right, and the addition of recent burn scars isn't going to help that issue at all.
That's the other thing, is if there's a fire and then snow melt or a big rainfall, that's your absolute worst scenario for flash flooding.
So if any of the people watching this video have lived below hills, even a mile or two below a hill that has recently been burned over, be the one person in the neighborhood who has set up some way to divert the water when it comes down when we next have a big winter. I do remember the 83 floods and mucking out houses for weeks that summer or spring. So
the burn scar up Parley's Canyon is a potential.
Yes,
we could see flooding. We did see flooding on I-80 right after the burn. So that could be potentially dangerous if we have. We've lost all the snow melt, so we're not going to be seeing snow melt coming down. But if we have a really bad rainstorm up through Parley's before that has a chance to regrow, we're going to see flooding on I-80 a lot.
Yeah, it's going to take 2 or 3 years at least before there's enough root base in there to hold the soil together, and decades before we get stands of Quakies and whatnot to hold the mountain up. And so David Sauce mentions that we occasionally have flash floods along Mill Creek, and that's true. I guess given enough rain, you can have a flash flood practically anywhere except at the top of a mountain, but which is less likely. But yeah, so all right. Well, thank you, Mickey. Thanks for coming along, and hopefully people take you up on this. Morris, anything else to remind people about?
We initiated last year a program of trying to recognize the member of the club that somebody or a group of people thought was best represented the club and ham radio in general. And Gordon received that last year, and I'm really looking for somebody or several somebodies to make a recommendation for that this year. If you have a recommendation, send it to me, KE7NZA at ARRL.net.
All right, that's a good thought. Yeah. Also, again, next month's meeting, remember, is going to be homebrew. We'll do it like we did last year, and I guess we'll put in the microvolt the information on how to get hold of us, but be prepared to present via Zoom. And if you have a video of your thing doing whatever it does, say it's too big to put in your ham shack or in front of your computer, we can take video submissions, try to keep them concise, somewhat amateur radio related, although there's a lot of latitude on that, and that sort of thing. And if you want to kind of see how other people did it, look on this YouTube channel, because you'll see last October 2020 meeting, it's homebrew, and kind of get an idea of the sort of projects. And if you have more than one project, feel free to contribute that. Well, let's see. Bruce Faraday mentions about the wind event last year. I guess that probably would have been a sort of a National Weather sort of a Skywarn thing, but I guess it was no secret that it was happening in that particular case, because it was happening over a pretty wide area. But again, spot reports are probably helpful because weather is often very local, especially severe weather. So anyway, with that, I will say 7-3 to everyone, and be safe, and see you next month. We're going to be online again next month, unfortunately, but we can always hope for a time when we can get back together in person. Talk to you later. Be safe. Bye.